Okay, hello. I should be live now. We will see if it worked. Hi, I am Mandala. Pretty infamous at this point in some circles, but I'm here to discuss a fractal that I think a lot of people are now starting to realize is a bit more important to the story than they might have initially presumed, but that's been kind of lost in in a lot of the new directions for the lore. They're not really new, but um, now relevant and easily understood direction for the lore in Guild Wars 2. So today I'm gonna solo this dungeon, this fractal dungeon Deepstone, just to talk about the lore of the dungeon, showcase some of its cool features. It's one of the better fractals in my opinion, and it was a really good addition back in season 4. And we're just going to talk about the lore and how I think Deepstone ties into these new concepts. Not new, again, not new, just now revealed concepts of the void and this like force of a like eternal primordial chaos and darkness, in Tyria and beyond, but specifically in this case below Tyria, in the depths of Tyria, and how that's going to play into future story and current story and how it relates to the past of this game. So I'm going to go through this dungeon and talk about all that stuff. I think one of the important things to note about before we begin with the dungeon is just some background about like its existence and where it like resides in the timeline of Guild Wars 2, in the sense that this was released in season 4 alongside the third episode of Living World season 4, so the Long Live the Lich patch. And so if we think about like the grand scheme and the direction of a lot of the storytelling in this era, it's coming right after the introduction of Joko as a main antagonist in the story, post Path of Fire and post his escape from the Domain of the Lost. And it's post Hall of Chains where we get introduced to the fallen god Doom and his recent attempts to be released from his prison within the Hall of Judgment. And also alongside that is the revelation from Joko in the Long Live the Lich patch post death, where he talks about the void himself. So um, I think if we look at the encompassing scenery of this fractal and like what content it was released alongside, we'll start to see this picture of how it plays into the narrative of this like chaotic darkness starting to grow um, behind the scenes throughout the period between Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2, and how it became kind of a very central narrative theme for this entire game. And so yeah, so lots of lots of voidy stuff that accompanied this Fractal's release, and you can see the dark themes at play here within the Fractal. So what we're going to do is we're going to start up this Fractal. I'm going to be soloing it on this Vindicator. I've got my trusty hammer and swords, and we're on like a really cheesy Celestial build, so it'll be super easy. Hopefully. We'll see. Maybe I'll be really bad and mess up and stuff, but it should be easy enough. And yeah, so let's begin. So when we go into this fractal, the key things I want you to take a real good look at is just how they tell the story and what they're using in terms of assets and effects to like create the ambiance of this fractal, right? So like the idea is that you're delving into this dwarven ruin where they've locked something behind this magic crystal, to prevent it from escaping. And so the question is like, what is this thing? What is it related to? How does it tie into the rest of the lore? And I think if you play through this methodically and with the intent of understanding exactly what they're doing with all the effects and dialogue, etc., you'll get a really good sense for the goals of the devs in this fractal. So let's boot it up, and we're going to listen to a lot of the dialogue and talk about dialogue and take pauses when we interact with things. But yeah.
Okay, look. Your hired muscles arrived. Let's get moving.
Sorry about that. Torin's a man of few words. Well, nice words. Tons of mean ones. Anyway, welcome to Deepstone. Lost treasure vault of the Delgimore.
I wonder what's down there. After all, abandoned treasure's still treasure.
Looks like this crystal was set up to block the entrance. Like a ward.
To keep us out?
No, the facets are all wrong. This crystal's here to keep something in.
Hey, you want to leave? Go ahead. It's my discovery anyway.
My discovery, Torin. I found this place.
Yeah, in a book. But I had to find it for real. You want to share the credit? Help me open this door.
Fine. The crystal can do it. We find a way to recharge it, and the vault should unlock.
Let's all split up, okay? You take right.
Alright, so we're introduced to a lot of stuff really quickly. So all the fractals, or so far that we know, take place in the past. So this one is these two guildmates of some two partners on a quest to loot this abandoned Delgimore dwarf vault. And they're not really sure what's in here. They just know that there's a crystal at the exit / entrance that is being used to keep something inside, and they don't really care too much about that. They're just here to loot the place, and so they split up on their paths and bring us the muscle, and it's just me. We're enough muscle, I hope, to explore this ruin and figure out what's in here that would be good to steal.
Oh, gods! Spiders everywhere! Why do I let him pick the paths? I always get the spiders. Share the credit? He can't boss me around like that. He isn't even in the guild anymore. Oh yeah, I might have forgotten to mention that. This job is, kind of his one shot at getting back in. Wait. I can feel the crystal's energy coming from across that bridge. If I stand on this... Right. Step on those other runes. That should deactivate the traps.
I'm reading energy from that crystal. It's like the spiders are protecting it. Or maybe it's protecting them.
Okay, so Kay and Torin are part of the Thieves Guild, which we don't know much about in the lore, but according to the devs, this is taking place sometime in between Guild Wars 1 and the start of Guild Wars 2. It's pretty far in the past. It's not that close to Guild Wars 2 in theory. But these two characters are part of the Thieves Guild, and they've decided to come here to this abandoned dwarven settlement that they don't really know that much about, in order to loot it and try to get back into the guild. So apparently, according to Kay, her friend Torin is on thin ice with the guild and is currently not part of it, and this is his chance to prove himself and get back in the guild. So we're here messing with all these dwarven traps to try to help him do something valuable for the guild and restore his good name. And we're gonna do a little magic here.
Okay, that did it. Did you? What was that? Oh, great, more spiders. Clear them out and let's go get that crystal energy.
Okay, so before we go in here, a big thing to note about this room is a bunch of things are going to happen. So we're fighting spiders. Spiders are a really important theme for this kind of darkness thing. Spiders and other monsters that'll be in this that often accompany these themes of darkness are here. And with these spiders specifically, we're going to encounter a few things. So first off, the spiders seem to be gathering around this crystal that's up in the ceiling that you can see kind of swirling there. That seems to be protecting them, or they're protecting it. Dessa's not really sure, but our goal is to try to get it and use it to bring the main crystal back online in order to explore deeper into the vault, into the Delgimore settlement. And so we're gonna go into this room and we're gonna start killing these spiders. But a few things are gonna happen, and I'm gonna tell you about them so that we can look at them really closely. So the first thing is around 70%. So we're gonna kill all these extra mobs, and once the extra mobs die, a big giant like queen spider is gonna spawn. And so when she gets to about 70% health, you're gonna see that the atmosphere of this area gets really dark and really like cold and like really murky and dark. So you're gonna see, like, you see this kind of sunny and nice right now, like not sunny necessarily, but it's like really bright lighting, and it's pretty pleasant to be in. Actually, it's very good lighting. But as we get this spider to about 70%, you're gonna feel like a darkness kind of swarm the area, and you'll be able to see it in the air, and you'll be able to see the lighting go down. Secondly, at around 50%, the spider is going to seem to start talking, and that's what Kay is going to bring up, but it's not actually talking, and we'll go into that more. But you're going to see a dark shadow kind of envelop the queen spider. She's going to turn into this like black, like just black, like incandescent, like very like shimmery black creature. So this like blackness is going to envelop her, and then she's going to start speaking in a language we don't necessarily understand, but Kay understands. So yeah, so we're going to go into this room, and we're going to watch for those effects, alright? And I'm going to try to be slow, and we're going to listen to the dialogue, and we're going to watch for those effects. So we're going to kill these spiders, and then do that.
I feel furious! Right on target!
Some more spiders. Alright, and that should spawn the queen.
Oh no! No, 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 no.
Alright, so pay attention to her health. And pay attention to what Kay says about everything. So around 70%, you're going to see the room just go really dark, and you're going to, and Kay's going to make a comment about it.
You feel that? It got really cold just now.
Right, so do you see the effect? Do you see all the darkness and how the light just kind of went out in the area? Hopefully you do. Alright, so now as we approach 50%, you're going to see this blackness envelop the spider.
Oh, I am not okay with giant spiders talking!
Alright, so do you see it? How it's kind of enveloped in this blackness, and it's not really... So she thinks the spider's talking, but it's kind of... The area went dark and cold and murky. The spider started speaking this weird language that we're not sure what it is. And then all these, like, spectral imp creatures appeared out of nowhere that we're not really sure what they're about. Right? So something's up here.
All right. That's answer. Answer us.
So she is somehow deciphering the language that this creature is speaking.
Dwarves? The dwarves trapped us? What is this thing?
Alright, so she's starting to realize that it's not necessarily...
Giant talking spiders? I don't... Just... Let's get this thing to the crystal.
Alright, so we'll talk about it more in just a second.
Probably needs another power boost.
And so Dessa sometimes makes a comment there. I can't seem to capture it right now, but she'll talk about the language that was just spoken, and she'll say that her translators aren't even, like, sure what it is. They couldn't even tell what the language was.
Oh, great. The cavalry's here. I've got my eye on you. Don't you forget it. Want to earn your keep? Hit those runes on the other side. Should turn this damn thing off.
But I'll go into a little bit what it is. So, back in Guild Wars 1, in the Eye of the North campaign, which was kind of the bridge between Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2 as games, there was a quest in the Shiver Peaks where you're helping an Asura decipher the ciphers of the gods. And so you travel all around Tyria and defeat these facets of the different gods that are shaped like kind of like crystalline dragons, and to get their ciphers and bring them back to this Asura. And eventually, he says that all of the ciphers are giving him a location to go to, and it's this place called Varahar Fells up in the Shiver Peaks. And so we go with him to this like kind of cave in the middle of nowhere, and we find there and kind of summon and defeat all the facets of the gods and of their powers in order to try to get an answer to, like, I think it's called the Path of Revelations is what the quest is called. So we're trying to, like, understand the universe as a whole. And so he gets there, and when we defeat all these facets, and in the end, something called an ephemeral spirit spawns, and it talks to us in this tongue, this language that we're hearing again here from these spiders, but not really the spiders, whatever is talking through the spider, gives him a code. And so if people who were savvy and were recognized with the ciphers, it's just a replacement cipher, so all the letters match up to different letters, and so you can spell out what the message reads. So in Guild Wars 1, the substitution cipher says, "An offering to those who seek, beyond the mists, beyond the dreams, on distant shores of a land unwaking, answers lie in waiting." So what I interpret this as is just like, go play Guild Wars 2 and you'll find answers. But I mean, it could be something else. But this text, so the Asura that we helped in Guild Wars 1 wrote a book, and it shows up in the Derman Priory Library, and it's written in this same text again, this substitution cipher again. And in the notebook, if you translate it, it says this. It says, "I believe Varahar Fells will be my tomb, for I have no desire to leave this valley of tumbled gods. The facets have been revealed, and the cipher as well. I have mastered them. A greater understanding of the eternal alchemy is within my reach. Human gods, char gods, Norn animal totems, they are all part of the all-encompassing eternal alchemy. I am humbled as never before by the grandeur of it, and by my own ability to conceive such vastness." Alright, so that's what this Asura named Kirsch has to say in this new tongue that he's now, like, understood and kind of assumed as his main form of communication in this ancient fallen god area where he is in the Varahar Fells. And so essentially what it is it's just this ancient language, and we don't know what it is, but he thinks now, having learned this language and stayed there to try to figure out what the facets and all this stuff meant, he thinks he understands how everything connects. And so how everything connects is through these concepts of, like, light and darkness, right? This, like, primordial darkness and this primeval light, these, like, forces of good and evil, night and day, warmth and cold. And so you'll see those themes pop up a lot, especially in this dungeon. So really especially in this dungeon, they really went for those themes here, so we're gonna continue to progress, and we'll talk about that some more. But essentially, this dungeon has a lot of lore tie-ins to old lore and continuous lore, and then if you, on top of that, consider when it released alongside the Hall of Chains and all of the revelations with Joko about the Void, and post Path of Fire where they mention the Void, and with the Verdurak legendary weapon from Grenth, which has to do with the Void. And so really, they're really hammering on this subject, but it's just such a big... They're very good at ArenaNet at taking really simple concepts and blowing them up so big that you just can't see the forest for the trees, right? And so that's what's happening right now, is nobody's able to see the forest for the trees because they're not stepping far enough back. But I'm trying to showcase to you how simple this concept is, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go across this little Tetris floor.
I gave it my all.
We're going to do our little hammer trick to get this button.
Good thing we aren't paying you by the hour. Come on, let's keep moving. An elemental? Well, that crystal's magic must be strong.
Alright, so they're starting to realize that this is a more serious ward than they were maybe thinking, and this tomb is more heavily guarded than they were anticipating, and so our help is required here in order to defeat this powerful elemental guarding this second stone, the second crystal that we're going to use to power the main crystal at the entrance. So we're going to go here and we're going to defeat this elemental. And again, another thing is notice the ambiance of the room. Like, look, it's all bright and nice and shiny, and maybe it's moonlight, maybe it's sunlight, who knows. But we're going to defeat the elemental, and you're going to look at how the environment changes once we do this.
Oh no, I'm trapped.
Might
Like
and
you'll have to
glory.
handle this one yourself. Good luck.
Let the rage soothe you.
That thing's pretty tough for a bundle of air. Keep it up. You're getting there. Damn, that thing's strong. You've almost got it. Come on, that orb's as good as mine.
So if we got hit by those tornadoes, we'd be thrown off the edge by these wind sprites. Alright, but watch, right? So see how shiny and nice and pretty and awesome daylight and very pretty the lighting is, and now watch what happens when we kill this sentinel.
Still in one piece. Come on, grab the orb.
Right? Do you see how the darkness came in and now it's all gross and dark, and you can see all this hazy blackness kind of enshroud us over here? Right? It's kind of gross now. The lighting just like went out, right? It's cold and dark, and now we've got this second power source that we're going to go and put into this crystal and see what happens. Alright. Another thing you might notice is that the music changes once we do this. So instead of the like happy kind of music we had at the beginning, we'll have combat music for a little bit, but it'll change to this like kind of chanty, like underworld, like really soft, like guttural choir music.
Did you just... I see. This must be how the dwarves fought those shadow creatures.
Fascinating, really. Come on, let's go see if that door's open now.
So now we have a new special action, and this is just the typical combat music.
What is that thing?
Try using the light!
So now we have access to this special action. It's called the Light of Delgimore, right? And so again, people familiar with the Guild Wars 1 lore, there's lots of tie-ins here. The Light of Delgimore was a gift from the god of the Delgimore dwarves, the Great Dwarf, right? And this like light power that that entity had and that blessed the dwarves, right? So they underwent a ritual in Guild Wars 1 using a special hammer called the Rite of the Great Dwarf that turned them all to stone and blessed them with this power, essentially turned them into the Great Dwarf themselves, right? And this skill is kind of reminiscent of that event in lore, because this is Jollis, the king of the dwarves at that time. But here again, we just powered up this facility, right? This city, this vault, whatever it is, and now this crystal's light, and we have the power of the light of Delgimore. And as Kay said, the dwarves use this power to fight the darkness that resides here and everywhere, just in the depths in general. And so, at some point between Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2, the dwarves set up this system to keep whatever darkness is in the Deepstone vaults in here. But we're spelunking, we're here to rob this area, so we're gonna help them go further in, even if that's not necessarily the right thing. So here's Shadow Monster, and the only way to reveal it is with the light of Delgimore. And so that's another theme we'll talk about, is how the light reveals and the darkness is shrouded and unseen. So right, we can't see what this creature is, but with the light we're able to see it, and that's should be themes we're familiar with. So look at this dark tether.
My pain is
Right, it's a Shadow Minotaur, and it's got really cool spell effects where it's kind of like a claw coming out to like grab us here. We are going to use the light of Delgimore to weaken it and attack it. Spawn its friends. They're not much of a concern. Yeah, so this place is more than it seems. It's not just spiders mad that we stole their little fun crystal. There's a lot more going on here than we realize. So you see, if you don't keep the light of Delgimore on it, it'll disappear. It'll vanish from our sight. So that plays into these themes of like ascension and the unseen, things like Versat. All of that plays with this same idea: this light versus darkness, the seen versus unseen, the blinding versus the imperceptible. And that'll come up a lot, just a lot.
Maybe let them finish killing all this shadow monster stuff.
You see a lot of imps. Imps are also a really big deal, especially in Guild Wars 2, when it comes to this like primordial darkness force that I'm saying is tying into the lore of the Void really well.
Just killing all the monsters worked. Good job.
So now we're gonna progress deeper into this vault with our thief friends and see how that goes for us. Luckily, we do have the light of Delgimore, and in theory, it is a great, powerful weapon against the forces of chaos and darkness. So we'll see if that holds here.
Looks like another dwarven trap. Go and step on that other rune.
This is just a hole in the ground. Dwarven traps are supposed to be clever.
Stop whining. Look, that did something. Why don't you go take a look at that orb? We'll wait here.
Some birthday cake for the nerves. Alright.
I can feel it, Kay. The treasure vault's gotta be right on the other side.
How are you so glib about this? Whatever's down here, it scared the dwarves off a whole vault of treasure.
I already told you you're free to leave whenever. So, what's keeping you here?
Because if it weren't for you, I'd probably be dead. I owe you, Torin. I owe you everything I've got. You got me into the guild.
You owe me? Look, I made some mistakes and I'm paying for them. But you don't owe me a damn thing. I mean, maybe you're right about this place. I got so caught up with getting back into the guild.
We might be in over our heads, but with the light of Delgimore, that's a different story altogether.
Well, we've also got you, Kay. Thanks for not giving up on me.
And so according to the lore devs that wrote most of this fractal, there's a lot of different variations of that dialogue, but essentially Torn is the reason why Kay got into the Thieves Guild to begin with, and he kind of like essentially took her in and took her under his wing, and so he's now on the outside of the guild and the community that they're a part of, and so they've taken on this kind of ludicrous quest in this really dangerous ancient Delgimore ruin, and they trust each other enough to continue forward. But another thing to look at is, again, so like look at this really nice lighting in here, right? The second we get to this first little orb here in this light puzzle in this maze, you're gonna watch the light go out and the darkness swarm us again. And a bunch of creatures will spawn, a bunch of shadow creatures, a bunch of spectral creatures, and it all plays into these themes of light versus dark, right? Good versus evil, day versus night, warm versus cold, right? And it's exhausting to say when you know what's going on, but I'm just gonna keep saying it because people aren't getting it. So, and this is a long. We got a really bad path here, really bad RNG for the procedurally generated path, so it's taking a minute. Yeah, another cool thing about these orbs that people might not know who do this fractal is they're actually respawn points, and all the enemies, so look, darkness, right? All the light went out in the room, and now a bunch of creatures are going to spawn and try to attack us and murder us. See them. So these shades and these spectral flames. But a cool thing is these orbs that we're not really sure what they're related to, but we think they're related to this power. In here, once we spawn more things. So they actually can't attack us here. You're actually safe in this little ring. They all die if they come and approach here. But you do lose your progress on the path, so something to be aware of. But yeah, so essentially the goal is to get in light all four of these orbs so that we can progress and get everybody to the other side of this really creepy abyssal hole. And it seems like we're going to get really bad RNG on the paths again, so might be a minute. Yeah, so now we're developing this theme a little further with this idea of like spectral flame, and you'll see this like shadow flame that's really, really potent imagery, like connected so deeply to the void in the End of Dragons expansion, and it's painfully obvious now what it is, right? It's this primordial darkness, this force of chaos worming its way through Tyria and constantly trying to consume and kind of subjugate this reality. And we'll talk about that more when we get a little further in. Yeah. It'd be nice to have alacrity here, because then our special action would come up faster, but this build's really strong anyway. It actually used to have access to alacrity before they fixed Ventari's tablet, and they've done a lot of work to make that skill a lot better, but it used to give alacrity. And with our boon extension, are we dead here?
I feel furious.
Barely made it. That was bad because we were in the wrong spot. Again, we had really, really, really bad pathing for this. It took a really long route.
Let the rage soothe you.
So we're using the light of Delgimore, we're lighting the path. It's the only reason we're able to get this far. And this is a really big thing in the Eye of the North campaign too, where you go down into the depths below Tyria, where Primordus's minions, the Destroyers, are destroying everything, right? Just like their name says. And a lot of the people we talk to related to the dwarves will be like, you need the Light of Delgimore in order to proceed. You will not do well without it. And so here we are. We have the Light of Delgimore in order to combat this darkness that's associated with the dragons, connected to the dragons in some way, which at this point we're not certain of why. But we figure it out in End of Dragons that they're just unstable and consumed by the void, by this torment, right? The magics are tormenting them, is how they describe it. And there's a cheat where you can kind of run along this wall, but we're not going to do that.
I feel furious. Ready for more.
Very close. We're almost done. This is the hardest part because it's just, you're supposed to have 5 people here pressing the button constantly, but just little old us, it takes a minute. Oh, that was close.
Not bad. So, Kay, I never asked. Why'd you hire the muscle? We've never needed it before.
To keep you from doing something stupid. Because I know you.
Well, we wouldn't be here without him. Guess you earned your keep after all.
Alright, and so he's talking to Kay about how she's smart and did the right thing. And so you can use the light to reveal these hidden chests everywhere as well, so that's another feature. And this mechanic, the Light of Delgimore, comes back into play later in Season 4 with the Thunderhead Keep patch, where we explore another Dwarven ruin, which is the ruin of Glint's Forge, where the Exalted now protect it, but it used to be the Dwarves. And yeah, so it's all tying into this idea of legacy and the light versus the dark and how the dragons play into that. And Season 4 and Path of Fire is really big on bringing all those threads and trying to yank them up out of the ground so that people can kind of start to see them, but still be really confused and like no one was not confused, right? Everybody had no clue what's going on, including myself. Maybe if I was paying really close attention, I could have figured it out, but probably not. It really took a lot of hindsight and really scraping together a lot of the lore to figure this stuff out. And then End of Dragons should have been the catalyst for now everyone to realize what's going on here. So we're going to press this button again and descend further into the Delgimore Vault.
Damn, more of those shadow things.
You see the shadows descend. It got really dark again, and all these imps showed up. We're just here with our little lighted Delgimore, trying to protect ourselves and our friends.
It's poisonous. I'm wilting. Need more endurance.
I can feel your rage.
We'll use Chalice because it's thematically relevant. I won't use it for too long though, because of the
Finishing
quickness.
for a fight.
Right, so we see all these shadowy beasts, demons, right? So think demonic, think ancient underground forces.
Torin, that voice. See you drawing closer. It knows we're coming.
Yeah, for the treasure vault. There it is. Come on.
Torn, wait! You don't have the light!
What's happening? This horn is adequate.
Alright, so we just came down to kind of the...
Torrid! What's going on?
I see what it sees. Now we will leave as one.
So their voices have started to overlap, right? So you kind of see this possession motif, this theme of possession coming across with this darkness power, right? So it wasn't the spider that was talking to us, it was this force down here in this hole in this Delgimore ruin, and the darkness is now taken Torin and captured Kay because they don't have access to the light of Delgimore, and so we have to leverage our force of the light against this darkness down here to solve this problem, right? So he's being taken over by this force. All right, and so again, we have to look back as well as forward when we think about it. We can't just think of the void in the future with the dragons, but also in the past with the gods, right? If you think of the fallen gods of Doom and Abaddon, right? Doom's the first fallen god, and according to the Guild Wars 2 lore in Ore, right? Grenth, who is the child of Dwayna and the sculptor Malcor, assembled his 7 followers, his guild, and they went to the Cathedral of Eternal Radiance in an attempt to defeat Doom, and we're not really sure exactly how that played out. In my headcanon, the idea was really that they were going to cleanse Doom in the Cathedral of Eternal Radiance, and then that didn't work, and they ended up killing him just outside of the cathedral, and so Grenth had to take over the power and assume the role of the god of death. But when we look at Guild Wars 2 and how Doom is portrayed there, we kind of see this same motif of the darkness possessing a vessel, right? So it's the darkness, and the darkness through the vessel is acting, right? And we're calling this darkness the void, right? So in the Hall of Chains, Doom is called the voice in the void, and he specifically, according to the Reapers, called the voice in the void. They're there to silence the voice in the void, right? They're not there to defeat Doom. They're not necessarily there to kill Doom. They're there to silence the voice in the void. It's a very specific line, very specifically delivered. It's partnered with all these other really subtle mentions of the void, right? And here we have another entity of darkness in the depths, right? Underworld. Think underworld could be considered the depths, like down below, darkness, cold, icy, right? No light, nighttime, and it's taken over our companion here, and we're using the light of Delgimore to defeat it, similarly to how the dwarves used the light of Delgimore to defeat the Great Destroyer, the champion of Primordus, the great evil lurking in the depths below the dwarves. And this is another great evil, and it might be the same great evil, and you'll see as we approach Torin, he will become a new entity and take on a spectral form, and his new identity to us will be called the Voice, right? The Voice, and the implication here is that this is the voice in the void, right? It is the voice of the void, right? This duality, this nature of possession, similar to how Suwan was possessed. And so we will be combating another vessel of this darkness, right? So let's go in here and we will beat up Torin.
I can't move.
So he is now the voice.
You have to use it.
And we'll see how this fight goes. This fight's a little more tough because the platform, it's not a hard fight, but it's just the platforms can be annoying. So you see he's taking on this spectral form, he's kind of wielding the darkness. You'll see him and the evil spirit will kind of talk over each other during this encounter. In a similar way to how Suwan speaks.
Hear my song echo through the darkness.
I'm new.
We have to CC him.
I'm out of endurance.
Right on target.
So he's gonna move, and we have to follow him. So you see all this dark flame, spectral flame, all these shades following us. We're fighting over this abyssal hole here, this kind of hole in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the Shiver Peaks, the endless depths. And all we've got is the light of Delgimore. It's the only reason we're in this fight.
Spectral flames come forth. Tear free their souls.
Alright. So he's summoning his spectral flame allies. You can see here this little demonic staff that he's got. He's kind of in between this world and the next almost. So he's summoning these spectral flames to try to pull us out of our bodies and take over. And we technically failed the mechanic there, but it doesn't matter because it's tier 1. So, and we don't have the greatest cleave in the world. Technically, I think if I put Jalis on, we would have been fine there, but we're just positioned better.
Let the rage soothe you.
But it doesn't really matter. We're here for the lore.
Torin, you have to fight it. Don't let it take you.
I gave it my all.
Keep going. You have to help him.
Alright, so Kay's like, keep fighting, don't let it take you, right? So even to her, he is possessed right now, right? It's not him, it's this darkness that's possessed him, this force, this voice, right? And the implication again, right, is this a similar voice to the voice in the movie, right? It is this darkness that is overtaking him. And it's such a pretty fight, and you can see that the light is kind of going out a little bit. It's getting darker. He wants us to CC him again. There we go.
Let the rage soothe
And our build's really OP, so we can just kind of face tank everything. It's getting awfully cold and dark, as someone might say.
This form degrades.
Right.
It will
So we're
not
beating him up,
last.
and this voice is not happy about it. We're saying the form will not last. This vessel is not enough. We are beating it up.
Fire in the darkness will claim you.
Right, so he's talking about the fire in the darkness, right? This shadow flame, right? Which we've not established so much this idea of like a shadow flame necessarily in Guild Wars 2, or even with this void concept. It's a little more pure in End of Dragons, the void, but I think it's all connected to me. I can't see how it isn't. There's just too much like keystone lore connected to these topics for it not to be that. The shades. So we're gonna beat him up. Alright, so this is the part where I should be turning on Jalis and just kind of cleaving them. No, we still messed up. We still failed. We're failures.
raise your weapon.
I can't believe we can't get past this mechanic as one person in 5-man content. And And we could be doing this on higher scale, probably, but that'd be a waste. And I don't have the agony on this character. So beating him up. His vessel's degrading. Shadow magic is failing him. Torn is not a good enough vessel for this beast. Light of Delgimore is saving our butt, because we would be dead.
That's valuable.
I can still save you. I can fix this.
No, you can't, Kay. There's only one way to save me now.
The light of Delgimore. But I don't have it. You have to do it. Please, make it quick.
Alright, so see her, she's accepted that her friend is gone now, right? His vessel, he's destroyed by the force that invaded him. And so now the only way to purify him and set him free is to use this light, this like divine light of the Delgimore, to purge this darkness from him completely and essentially kill him, because he's no longer able to persist without it. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna set him free. So sorry, Torin.
Doran, I won't let them forget you. I promise.
Fractal is stabilized. Still no idea what that thing was. Maybe we'll never know. Might be for the best.
And right, so they're saying maybe we'll never know what it is. What is this darkness, right, below the depths? And again, they've been really cagey with it, so it's understandable that people don't really haven't put everything together, all the data points together, right? It's a big, huge puzzle, and a lot of the pieces are on the table now, but there's still a lot of really important connecting pieces that still need to be put down. So in my eyes, where this is going is, especially in Cantha, is towards like Kanaxai, right? And so his nightmare horde in the depths below Cantha, right? I think that's a really likely next step for the Void story, and how we dig deeper into this idea of the darkness below Tyria, right? And you can think of, there are other cool tie-ins to this established lore. You can think of Tida Covington, and her obsession with what she thinks is Grenth, right? This like dark, cold power beneath Bloodtide Coast, right? That she's worshipping and following, and it's causing her to be all crazy and stir things up with all the pirates. You can think of the Crate and their nightmare obelisks, their obelisks to their dark gods below the depths. You can think of the like Cthulhu monster below the depths, like whatever creatures down there that Suwan was combating. There's lots of different tie-ins to this that I think we're gonna expand upon in the near future. You can think about the Asura and the Mursak connection to the Asura, and like where their power come from. Why are they kind of these like shriveled, dark, like almost like fallen, exalted looking creatures? Yeah, so there's a lot of things. Essentially, right, Guild Wars 2 is the story of the light versus the dark, and there's lots of different, right, trees in the forest that look very different and look like they don't fit into this larger network, but it's all connected, right? Think back to the Varahar Fells notebook, right? It says human gods, char gods, Norn animal totems. They are part of the all-encompassing eternal alchemy, right? Everything meshes together. This idea of like this eternal, like destiny, this like alchemical, this reaction of the universe, right? The play, like how the universe exists, right, is all connected. And so I think the easiest way to think about it is to think of the legendary greatswords, right? You got Twilight, Sunrise, and then put them together and it's eternity, right? That's the simplest, most blunt symbol for this conflict, this eternal war, right? This war eternal. You can think of Balthazar and the Zaishin. You can think of Cormir and the Sun Spears, right? This light versus dark, right? Good versus evil, right? It's just this never-ending cycle. And so the fractals, spoiler, are really all dealing with this, the idea of this chaos in the mist, right? These chaotic scenarios where this force of chaos exists, and we go in and we stabilize it. So that's what we did here, right? We found another source of chaotic instability, and we came in and we put it down with the light at Delgimore, and now everything is fun and happy again. And so for the rest of Guild Wars 2, we will be doing that. We will be using our magical Woo baby Aurene to go in and defeat all the darkness, and she will be OP, very OP, and nothing will ever happen to her, and she will be the weapon against this darkness forever, and no bad things will ever happen again in Guild Wars. We're just gonna send her in, be like, get him, Aurene, kill him with your light, and she'll do it, and we will win, and we'll go, yay, happy days, Aurene is awesome. Praise Aurene, Dragon of Light, right? So there you go. This is Deepstone. Think about the depths, right? Think about the darkness, all these possessed beings consumed by darkness. Abaddon, Doom, in a way, Tida Covington. Canaxai is like a vessel for this as well. Think like Malix. Think the dragons, right, with their oblivion and their void and their torments. Yeah, lots of stuff. Lots of darkness, lots of evil bad. And I think the story is going to continue from here. So this was just a cool little run of this dungeon to showcase how this all ties together and how Deepstone is a really good example of expertly crafted world building and storytelling that seems separate, that stands alone, right? Stands on its own 2 feet. It's a very good, poignant tale of 2 guildmates and their hired help going in to tackle this heist and failing and losing someone they cared deeply for to this darkness, right, in the past. But it's also ties in to the larger story of Guild Wars 2, the narrative as a whole, right? The franchise's story. And so this is something I think Guild Wars 2 and ArenaNet, right? So ArenaNet, the studio, does with Guild Wars 2 and with Guild Wars 1 in the past really, really well, and I hope they continue to have really involved and deep storytelling, right? Pun intended, right? Really deep storytelling that has a lot of intricate facets to it, and that continues to push this narrative and explore it in interesting and fun ways, and continues to evolve, right? A lot of the stuff they've been doing to evolve the narrative has been great. I like all the Suwan stuff, right? I'm glad that she's not just another big bad evil dragon, right? It was very good how they evolved her character and evolved this narrative of the light versus dark, the chaos versus order, void versus harmony, right? Harmony is a big word that I think we're gonna come into a lot soon, maybe. But anyway, all right, that's this. This is Deepstone. I'm signing off now. Sorry for my rambling, but hopefully this was insightful, and feel free to tell me how stupid I am.